So we're going to go through this very carefully. You are going to take this knowledge. You can clip this up. Feel free to share it on your Twitter feed or your TikTok and anything you want. But we're going to go through the facts. We're going to go through what's going on, what matters, what doesn't. So you guys don't have to freak out every time someone mentions the 3-letter word of the SEC. So here we go. So this is talking about Coinbase. Coinbase CEO and what a modern day Howey test for cryptocurrency may look like. So this is Brian Armstrong. Like this is the guy. He is like the figurehead. He is the darling of regulators. He knows what's going on. Earlier this week, he's a Silicon Valley insider as well. And smash the like and subscribe button. We got 109 watching, and that's all you, Crypto Coffee. So thank you. Earlier this week, Brian Armstrong, co-founder and CEO of crypto exchange Coinbase, shared his thoughts on crypto regulations in the U.S. Blah blah blah. Here's the Coinbase CEO's proposal for a modern version of the Howey test that could help determine whether a particular crypto asset is a commodity or security. So keep in mind that when it comes to the Howey test, it has to pass all 4 legs. So if it passes 1 leg, it's not a security. If it passes 2 legs, it's not a security. If it passes 3 legs, it's not a security. If it passes all 4, then it is a security, right? He then pointed out that all 4 of these prongs need to be satisfied for the asset to be considered a security. And if you just have a few of them, that is not enough. Important point there. Remember it, guys. So 1, was there an investment of money? If the crypto asset issuer hasn't sold the asset for money for the purpose of building a project, it is not a security. So when the adoption amplifier, you know more about it than me, was it to build Hex? Or was Hex already built?
Yes, Hex was a finished product. And I really love how he's revising this because the previous version was an investment of money into a common pool with the expectation of profit from the work of others.
Oh, that's the fourth.
That's the original, right? But what Brian's doing here, Brian Armstrong, is he's elaborating and being more specific because you have to be in this modern day world. And so the first leg that we're focusing on here was there an investment of money? Maybe. But the crypto asset issuer, if the crypto asset issuer hasn't sold the asset for money for the purpose of building the project, it's not a security. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, Richard put up all of his own money. He paid for the audits himself. He paid for the development work himself out of his own pocket. He was already rich before all this stuff, right? He had the money. You know, the whole adoption amplifier was just a method of distributing the coins because how are you going to give the coins out? You know, you got to get the coins to the people somehow. So you have to pick some kind of method to get the coins out there. But the money is not used for building the project. And I love this. I hope this gets adopted.
And compare that to like projects like Flow and projects like I remember reading the Wall Street Journal. It's called it was like DeSo, decentralized social media. They go to Andreessen Horowitz in Silicon Valley and they say, hey, want money for our coins so we can build this project? And they give them tens, of millions of dollars. They just throw money at them. So fails the first leg, already not a security. Would you say that's fair to say?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we'll go to the second one anyway, because just to educate you guys, is the investment in a common enterprise? For a crypto asset to be a security, it must be controlled and operated by a centralized organization like a company. If a project has become sufficiently decentralized, it is not a security. So Crypto Coffee, is the investment a controlled and operated by a centralized organization like a company?
It's a rhetorical question, I know, but I think the answer is pretty obvious. People get confused about this all the time. Like, my grandma will probably still thinks there's a Bitcoin company. Like, oh, are you still working for Bitcoin? You know what I mean? It's a lot of these cryptocurrencies do not have a company behind them. Hex is one of them. Now, there are issues with companies like Ripple, right? That's a legitimate company. Ripple might actually be a security. I don't know. Yeah. But there is no building full of people in Hex. Hex is a decentralized movement. It's just a bunch of people in their basements, sitting on their couches, tweeting about Hex. Like, it's a decentralized network. It's organic and grassroots. It's not a company at all. There's nobody to go after because there's no CEO. Yeah, Richard's the founder. He's now the CEO because there's nothing to be a CEO of. There's no organization. There's no company, right? And I understand that it looks, from the outside looking in, it might look a little more organized than it really is. But part of it's kind of like controlled chaos, right? Like, part of the fun of the Hex community and part of the pain of it is that it's not a company, but it behaves as kind of this amorphous entity of people all loosely related to each other because they all kind of believe in the same ideals. That's called a community. That's just a community. It's not an organization on paper. There's no LLC for Hex.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I guess let me just bring, people would say it's centralized because of the OA. Could you address that?
Yeah. So just because somebody has more coins in a certain project has no affiliation with, the centralized organization that they're talking about here. It really has nothing to do with it. I mean, there's different levels of ownership in every single cryptocurrency. Is Satoshi the CEO of Bitcoin because he has 1 million Bitcoin? No, he was the first Bitcoin miner. He just stealth mined Bitcoin before everybody else because for a year he was the only person that really knew about Bitcoin. There was maybe 10 people mining Bitcoin in the first year, and so it's like, and every single, if you go to the Ethereum top 100 list on Etherscan, and you pick any coin off that top list, and you go to the tab that says top holders, click on the top holders tab, and it will come up with all of the wallets and how centralized economically these coins are.
Yep.
But just because something is centralized economically does not mean it's an enterprise, right? Yep. An enterprise is not a company. Or, I mean, a cryptocurrency is not a company, right?
Beautiful. And the OA cannot control whether I decide to lock up and earn yield. The OA cannot control whether I decide to pump or dump the price in any direction. I mean, there is no, it fails. Would you say it's fair to say that it fails the second leg of the Howey test?
Yep. And the second leg also has a point there called sufficiently decentralized. And that is in relation to what's called the Hinman standard. The Hinman standard was an add-on to SEC securities laws that basically was used to say that Bitcoin was sufficiently decentralized, even though it might have started off centralized, it's sufficiently decentralized as to not be a security. The Hinman standard looks like it's being baked into this proposal for the second leg of this proposed Howey test, which I like because it should be. And I think that, Hex is sufficiently decentralized as well, because you've got tens of thousands of holders all across the world.
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands, but probably more people have more than one wallet. I would say we're really at the tens of thousands stage right now. Still a shit ton of people.
Opportunity, guys.
Yeah, still a ton of people, for when you look at the adoption of a lot of these crypto projects, most of them never get past 10,000, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's a lot. It's a lot of people. It might even be over 100,000 when you consider the holders. I guess I was only counting the stakers, but when you consider the holders, it's probably over 100,000. And look, I think it's sufficiently decentralized because on top of that, there's a legal opinion letter written to the SEC stating why Hex is not a security, and it's been written a long time ago. It was written before Hex launched. This is a legal opinion letter that helped get the Hex Investment Trust approved by the SEC. The Hex Investment Trust is a vehicle that the SEC has already acknowledged is legit. And by acknowledging the legitimacy of the Hex Investment Trust, they've basically acknowledged that Hex isn't a security in more or less words. So the whole thing happening right now, I mean, look, the SEC is just an organization that, not every office of the SEC talks to each other. So whichever office approved the Hex Investment Trust probably is not aware that there's this separate investigation going on. I think if they just talked to each other and communicated with each other a little bit more, they'd find out, oh, well, there's already this legal opinion letter. There's already this approved investment trust. This is kind of a non-issue. And that's exactly what the Discord Syndicate is going after as well. So they're forming their own company at Discord Syndicate to go after a formal legal opinion that Hex is not a security, just so that we don't have to do this crap anymore. Because believe it or not, this is not the first time Hex was investigated by the SEC. There was an investigation in the first couple of months back when everybody was calling Hex dead on that first dip. And they didn't find anything because there was nothing to find. So, we just don't want this to happen over and over again. And this time, the investigation affects individual people where, it's a pain in the ass to have to pay for a lawyer to tell you that they're not doing anything wrong. Having to prove your innocence is something that is, you can countersue for that. you can countersue. And I think the Discord Syndicate eventually plans on doing that as well. Whatever company they're using under the umbrella to form that legal opinion, that firm legal stance, because we have a lot of legs to stand on here. You know,
we got 4 legs to stand on.
Yep.
And beautifully said. Let's move on to so it fails first and second. It's already not a security, but just for the sake of education, this is all education. Is there an expectation of profit if the primary purpose of the crypto asset is some other form of utility, voting, governance, incentivizing actions of a community, yield, possibly, then it is very unlikely to be considered a security. So this is like the one I thought maybe it passes, but what's your take on this?
Yeah, this one's a little foolish because people buy this. Yeah. People buy any crypto because they think it's going to go up.
No, I bought Uni for the governance. I want to be involved in the governance.
Right. Of course. Anyone saying that they're in the crypto for the utility is completely full of shit. You can be in it for the utility, yes, but you're also in it for the profit. Let's be honest about that. Hex is also very honest about the fact that yes, it was designed to be a store of value. And so I'm sure there's an expectation of profit, but it's not from the work of others, right? The expectation of profit is not derived from the work, which is the next leg. So
yeah. And there is also other forms of utility, meaning the staking, right? I mean, that is another form of utility. So I think it probably doesn't, it probably fails this one, but this is probably maybe the closest one to passing. So yeah, maybe you're 1 for 4.
Sorry, this might be the weakest argument, but yes, one form of utility is definitely trustless yield generation. And so it replaces, a yield generating interest bearing bank account, in a trustless way. So a good lawyer would probably argue that yes, there is a form of utility here that the crypto asset.
And let me add to this. There's already precedence from Bitcoin because people buy Bitcoin with expectations of profit. So it fails this one too. I'm saying we have to make Bitcoin a security. I'm sorry.
Right. Exactly.
You can't disaggregate like the legal.
And like you said too, they have to pass all 4. And of course, Bitcoin. Why do you think people are buying Bitcoin, guys?
Yeah,
they're storing value and they're expecting profit.
Yeah, exactly. We don't care about the price, says the guy that got in and already had 1,000x. Oh, I'm just in it for the tech, says Simon Dixon.
Yeah. Kevin Pyle says, I don't expect profit. I expect the code to work the way it's written. And he hopes for profit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Me too.
We're all hoping for profit. The more you expect it, the more disappointed you might be. So just hope for profit.
Yeah. Well said. And we have 120 watching, which is unbelievable. You are a rock star, Crypto Coffee. Trust me, I stream every day, by the way, guys, 12 p.m. Eastern time, talking Hex, Pulsechain, PulseX. So Sunday through Friday. And I do not get 120. I get maybe 20 to 50. So
wow. And the thumbnail was just a picture of my face. So I guess
you like the thumbnail though. It's a nice thumbnail. I like the thumbnail.
Yeah. Maybe do that every time.
Yeah. Okay. As long as you don't copyright strike me. But yeah, guys, please subscribe to Crypto Coffee's channel, Furu Finance, right under. I'm kidding. Subscribe, obviously, also to Crypto Coffee's channel. I'm sure you have, but just in case, and follow him at Crypto Coffee 369, and go to hexpassiveincome.com.
There you go. Thanks.
There you go. And the fourth leg, guys, are the profits to be derived primarily from the efforts of others? If the expectation of profit primarily comes from participants who are unaffiliated, keyword right there, primarily comes from participants who are unaffiliated with the issuance of the asset, then the project is sufficiently decentralized and would not be considered a security. This is very key. So that I think this is really the gray area where people are saying that Hex content creators are being investigated by the SEC because they want to see if people are taking money from Richard Hart. So Crypto Coffee, are you taking money from Richard Hart?
I am not. I have never been paid by Richard Hart. I wish I had, but at the same time, that would have been terrible because that would put everybody at risk. Look, none of the content creators I've ever talked to have ever been paid from Richard Hart. I've talked to Richard, yes, of course. I've met him in real life. We didn't know each other before we started Hex. And guys, are the profits derived primarily from the work of others? If they were, then I wouldn't have started my channel. I started my YouTube channel because I couldn't rely on anybody else to pump my bags and keep the narrative alive. And so back in the early days when Hex was getting pretty heavy FUD, pretty much almost, I would say that in the early first 2 months of Hex, we were at equivalent levels of FUD that we are at today. And that's what actually drove me to get off my ass and go defend the Hex, something I believed in, right? Just cryptocurrency I believed in. Just like I could have started a Bitcoin channel. I decided to talk about Hex instead. And so the efforts aren't primarily derived from anybody else. I realized that. Oh crap, all these people are shit talking that I like. Let me get out there and say my perspective on the whole deal, because I am not relying on the efforts of others. I mean, that's why I'm sure you started your channel too. It's because, we couldn't just sit there and just let everybody say what they want about Hex without getting our narrative and our perspective out there. So I love what Brian's also done, because he extends these, he adds to them. And he said, if the expectation of profit primarily comes from participants who are unaffiliated with the issuance of the asset. And that's exactly what none of us were affiliated with the issuance of the asset. To be actually very honest, the asset was distributed by the smart contract. So there was technically, there was no human associated with the distribution of the asset. The adoption amplifier was coded into the smart contract. And a lot of work went into the smart contract to do it that way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And look, I mean, I could even see like Pulse Dogecoin, right? It was just an airdrop that you could claim. So in a way, the code distributed Pulse Dogecoin to everybody too. There's a lot of coins that are distributed in a fair way that doesn't rely on another person or company, that just relies on the code. Having a claim button for your token is probably a decently good idea. If you're going to make a token, don't give it to somebody manually. If they want to get it, make them do something in order to claim it, and make the smart contract the distributor of the token. And that's what Brian's adding to this, because it's essential. It's essential to differentiate a central entity, a company distributing the coin and promising to do work for you to pump your bag, versus a smart contract distributing the coin. And then people can talk about the coin if they choose to, but those participants are just market participants and they're not affiliated with the issuance of the asset.
Or the
issuance. Yeah. So yeah, Brian is proposing that is sufficiently decentralized. He's basically taking the legs of the Howey test and just adding on to them some more specifics for cryptocurrency in general, which I like, because the Howey test was made over 100 years ago. It is really outdated. And these seem like a very crypto-friendly modification for this whole thing.
Yeah, beautifully said by Crypto Coffee. There you guys have it. So now that we know this, the next time you hear, the SEC, it's like, you just refer to this, you go back to the book, you refer to the Bible, so to speak.
Yep. And again, if one of the legs is a little shaky, which it is, let's realize that, like Furu Finance said, you have to fail all four. It's not just one, it's all four.
And I think, by the way, let me just say that I think Bitcoin is already serves as a precedence that Hex fails the third, because if you want to say the third one, no, you have to. I made a mistake with the language. I think you have to pass all four. If you fail all four, you're not a security. It's so confusing. It's legal stuff. Yeah. But if you want to argue that Hex fails the third, I don't want to hear you saying Bitcoin is not a security, guys. You cannot disaggregate Hex from Bitcoin. It's very similar issue. It's very similar.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And so the more you can learn about this, the more you can realize that, yes, the SEC can investigate. They're totally entitled to that. The SEC can do their due diligence. Look, somebody probably complained to the SEC. Maybe it was that loser guy, Mike Alfred. Maybe it was Mike Alfred because his Bitcoin mining company went bankrupt. And, people project their own insecurities all the time. And so some of the loudest haters of Hex are also some of the biggest losers. Like, they actually got people wrecked.
Yep.
Some people that hate Hex are people that promoted Celsius. Like, I'm sure Mashinsky hates Richard Hart and probably has a personal vendetta against him. But guess what? Mashinsky's company failed and he lost people millions of dollars, and he's got to live with that. But people don't like to take responsibility for their fuck ups. They like to project them onto other people. So you can tell by who's hating the loudest, who's probably the biggest scumbag. You know what I mean?
Beautifully said.
What?
Beautifully said.
Yeah, thanks. And Look, I don't know. I'm just making that up. It might not be Mike Alfred, whoever launched this investigation. It could just be that sad little loser that lost half an ETH, and is crying about it. They have to do their due diligence. So the SEC is doing their job. I also want to differentiate that an investigation is not a case. The investigation is specifically targeting influencers in order to build a case. The point of an investigation is to collect evidence to then build a case. So they need to collect evidence first, which they obviously don't have. And they're not going to find any because they're barking up the wrong tree. They're not going to find any evidence of any of us being paid by Richard Hart. And that's specifically what they're looking for. They're looking for direct connections of did Richard or did anybody centralized in Hex pay people to promote Hex? Because that is primarily related to the fourth leg, the expectation of profits derived from the work of others. And so we were not paid to shill Hex. We're basically glorified NFL fans, right? We're just crypto fans on our own teams, right? I'm promoting the team that I like the best. And that is totally within my freedom of speech. And so when you know the laws, you know your rights, and you understand that none of the influencers have ever been paid to promote Hex, as far as I know, you don't have to worry about it. And look, it's totally a non-issue. It's going to be a long, drawn-out nothing burger, and haters are going to use that as their primary exhibit A of why you shouldn't buy Hex. But if you're here listening, or if you want the other side of the story, this is the other side of the story, which is the truth, which is the fact that no one's breaking any rules. This whole thing is going to be a nothing burger. And again, the people that do buy the dips, that do have the long-term patience, I believe are going to be heavily rewarded for having the courage to stand by their conviction and understand what's real and what's made up imaginary fan fiction.
Yes. And beautifully said. I wanted to maybe add to that. It's like, that is the power when Warren Buffett says, know what you hold, understand what you hold, do your research. I mean, this is a perfect example of that, in practical terms. For example, in the early days of Hex, the people that listen to the big channels and the people that listen to the Furus, so to speak, they did not buy. They did not get in on it because they are like, oh yeah, this guy, he's got 100,000. He says it's a scam. It's a scam. Richard Hart's a scam or whatever. But the people that really understood what they were buying, they really understood what code was. They were able to discern fact from fiction, truth from lies. They were rewarded greatly. And I think what we're seeing this play out over again. This is deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra says.
Look, it's
people that see the SEC, like people see, oh, SEC investigation, whatever, like they get screwed. People that see price depreciation, they get screwed. People that understand, oh, okay, what is a security? What are the four legs of the Howey test? Does Hex fail? Does Hex pass all four legs? Those kinds of things, these kinds of metrics, this kind of information is very powerful and could really help you.
It's very reminiscent of the early days of Hex, which is, it adds to the case of when I say, hey, we're doing this all over again, it's a second chance. I really feel like it is a second chance because the FUD was so strong in the early days of Hex because the same types of things were happening. Some random news source puts out literally fake news about Hex. And, upon first glance, you say, somebody that doesn't want to think below the surface, that doesn't want to do any thinking, the types of people that want others to think for them, they're going to get scared off because they're going to see SEC and a couple of buzzwords from a couple of Twitter guys with 50,000 followers or 100,000 followers. And they're going to just hand over their thinking, their ability to critically think, to somebody else. But if you have the ability to think for yourself and you can see what's going on here, you could actually see this as a pretty good opportunity. I see this as a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say that, oh, if only you would have invested early, you would have been doing great. But a lot of you guys that maybe might have been watching right now, maybe you came here a year or two later after Hex was launched. If you were in those early days experiencing that FUD, ask yourself, would you have actually had the conviction to see behind the curtain and see the truth of what was going on? Because a lot of people, if you're not a good fit for Hex, then you're not a good fit. And that's okay. You don't have to be here. Like, if you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. If you don't want to be involved, don't be involved. But if you understand the opportunity, that's why I'm excited. That's why I'm staked. And that's why I bought. That's all I can say is that people think it was easy in hindsight to just go and buy in the early days. But You have no idea how much animosity there was towards the entire Hex community in those early days, which, by the way, the community was maybe like 50 people in those early days, So, it quickly grew like wildfire, and now there's tens of thousands of us. But, it's almost easier now because at least you have a community that's got your back.
Yeah.
We've all got shared ideas and values. It's actually easier to have conviction today, in my opinion, than it was back when there was only a couple hundred people. In January of 2021, there were dark times. It was very, very hard. And I could see why, but it was very, very hard for somebody to convince themselves to actually look into Hex. Looking into Hex is probably going to lead you down a rabbit hole to, understanding the opportunity. Whereas surface level, reading tweets and reading headlines of articles is probably going to scare you away. And if you're scared away by headlines and tweets and you don't have the ability to think for yourself, I mean, if you're that kind of person, you're probably the same kind of person that believes everything CNN and Fox News are telling you. I mean, it's all lies. I mean, the mainstream media is all lies. It's the same with crypto as well. Everybody's getting paid off by a centralized company in one way or another. In my opinion, Hex holders are some of the more honest people in the space.
Well, except us, we're not being paid off by a centralized entity. So
exactly. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We're some of the only people that are not paid. Like I don't have sponsors. I don't have people telling me what to say. That's just my thoughts. That's all you get.
Yeah. And that's why it's important to support people like Crypto Coffee. And it's important to go to hexpassiveincome.com and become a patron. I'm going to link it in the description. I'm serious. No,
you're shilling harder than I've ever shilled. Thank you so much.
It's true though. It's like, do you want him to have to go and work at a corporation or something? Or do you want him to start? I'm saying he would obviously, Crypto Coffee would not, take paid sponsorships. He would, he put on the McDonald's hats before having to do that. But I'm saying when we have to earn money, guys. Okay. I'm saying this is hard work and it's important, but we need to live. So go to hexpassiveincome.com.
Well, same to you, man. Everybody go like and subscribe to Furu Finance and consider joining that YouTube membership.
Yes. It's for the price of a cup of coffee. That's my pitch.
There you go. There you go.
How ironic, we got crypto coffee on here. It's $3, $4, $5. Those are the 3 tiers. You get badges, you get priority in the comment section and the live chat. So,
nice.